What's up, guys? It's Emperor John Kill 3D Gaming here, and today I'm reviewing the first DLC expansion to Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Now, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot came out a few months ago, and I would say I was looking forward to the DLC since the base game did a really good job of bringing us into the world of the original Dragon Ball Z. Now, yes, with key differences here and there, there's also a couple things I want to discuss about people having some contradictory statements and spreading misinformation about how Vegeta got Super Saiyan God. Now, I'm going to say it right now. The games are not canon to the manga, to the films, or to the anime. I've seen plenty of people who just believe that this is the origin, saying, yeah, this is the origin because the game said so. Why would they put it? Because it contradicts what Goku said in Dragon Ball Super. Goku said Vegeta unlocked God Ki on his own. There was no need for the ritual. He did it, he proved his strength, and then from then on, he was able to do Super Saiyan God and then Super Saiyan Blue, which the first time we seen him do Super Saiyan God, which I'm going to just call Super Saiyan Red, which would be easier, we saw him do it for the first time in the Broly movie, but in the manga he did it in the Goku Black arc to prove that he can do the form. So, with this DLC, this is basically a very condensed version and weird spin on Battle of Gods. When you do get Beerus's planet, you do get a handful of sub-stories that are very challenging, and the goal of this DLC is to unlock Super Saiyan God and challenge Beerus at level 250. That is the max cap for him, and that is the max cap for your characters. The only thing is, this DLC is very underwhelming, and for me as a Dragon Ball Z fan, I'm disappointed, but I'm not gonna tell you that I hate the DLC. I don't. I just wish there was things about it that could have changed, and in fact, if they were going to do the Super Saiyan God story, they should have just given us the arc. They should have just given us the whole entire arc in this section of the game. You know, or this feels more like the true ending to the video game. Kind of like how people got upset that the true ending to Asura's Wrath was cut off. I think this should have just been put into the main game, and then they could have done the other Dragon Ball Super stuff in full from then on. Because this feels like something that should have just happened right after the game ended. That this feels more like a epilogue leading into a sequel or leading into what comes next. But if it was a cheaper DLC, since many people, including myself, I'm a fan of Dragon Ball Z, so my version of the game came with the season pass, so it doesn't bother me too much. But if the DLC needed to be priced a little lower on its own, this feels more like a $7-8 Xenoverse 2 expansion than a full-fledged open-world Dragon Ball Z experience expansion. Now, don't get me wrong. It's cool to unlock Super Saiyan God. You get a lot of new missions, training with Whis, and fighting Beerus. It's very challenging. It will push you to the limit. If you hadn't already been pushed to the limit in the main game, this will push you to your absolute peak. Now, fighting as Goku or fighting as Vegeta against Whis, it's a very different experience. He has similar moves that he'll do to you, but his fighting patterns change depending on your character, which is a nice nod to the series because Whis states, both surprisingly, he states one thing in the game that he does continue to state over in the manga and the anime, that it's much easier for him to teach Vegeta than it is for him to teach Goku. So at least they kept that in line. I just wish that if they were going to take some creative liberties with the story of Battle of Gods, they should have just had many cutscenes, some story missions that were spliced in with training missions to help give you at least a couple more hours of gameplay, because the DLC on its own only gives you, depending how fast you burn through it, it also depends what level you are, if you're a returning gamer or a new gamer coming into this game. If you're new to this game and you're going to try to jump, you could jump to this DLC immediately, and Whis will teach you. He can unlock the Super Saiyan forms for you from the beginning when you train with him, so you could get a head start as a new player. But the problem is, you have to play the main game to level up even higher to be able to challenge Beerus to even unlock the Super Saiyan God. Now, what is cool is that you can take the Super Saiyan God form and everything you unlock, and they do cross back and forth to the main game. So it's fun going back to the time machine and going back to different missions, fighting different bosses with, you know, the incorrect forms. But it gives the game replayability. But as a standalone DLC, it all depends if you're a fan of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, etc. Because if you are, then yes, this would be a fun 2 hours for you. It took me about 2.5 hours, more so because I had to retrain my characters, and I had to level myself up even higher, having to go back and do the some main missions in the base game, some sub stories, and training with Whis before I was even able to take on Beerus. You do get to take on Beerus at least a magnitude of 2 to 3 times. 2 times in the training to give you an idea of what he's capable of, and then the level 250 main course. But that also depends how much time do you want to put in to fight him. Is beating him worth it? It's satisfying nonetheless. Yes, when you play it, it's very satisfying, but when you play as Goku fighting Beerus, he's actually slightly more of a pushover. It's weird. When you fight as Goku, Whis is a little easier as well. It's almost like this DLC was just geared towards Vegeta, and the true challenge is when you're using Vegeta against Whis and Beerus. So you do get that level of satisfaction that, okay, they beat you the first few times. You go back, you level up, and you come back. It just all depends how much you want to put into leveling up, which will determine the amount of time that this DLC will last. But on average, it would take you an hour and a half to 2 hours on the norm. But if you're a newcomer, it probably will take you longer, and then you might say, okay, I'm getting my money's worth if I got the season pass with the game. But if you're a returning gamer or someone currently playing, I can understand where the disappointment is coming from. I can see both ends of the spectrum here. So I just don't hate the DLC as what I'm seeing other YouTubers say about it. It's not the worst at all. It's underwhelming and could have been handled much better. But this could be a learning tool for the developers to come in and say, okay, let's make the next expansions, because there's only 2 more expansions. This game has a total of 3. So whether the second episode is just going to be called A New Power Awakens Part 2, which gives us Super Saiyan Blue, because I very much doubt they're going to put us in all the arcs. They're probably just going to give us strung together missions, or they could give us full-blown story arcs. The next DLCs can connect to each other. You know, I could be wrong on that, but as of right now, this DLC, it's very underwhelming, and it depends if you want to buy it. I wouldn't tell you, oh yeah, you don't need to buy it, because if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, anything Dragon Ball Z, you're going to want to have it. You're going to want to get the DLC, you're going to want to play it, just like me. But we do expect more from our anime-based titles, especially from Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z made a comeback in the past few years, and this game was to help propel it forward, which it did, but they slightly stumbled with this DLC. So, if I was to rate this DLC, I give it a 6.5, and that's all I got to say about it. This is Emperor John Kill 3D, and I'll catch you all next time. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow.